Hi everyone, Monique here. Thanks for being with me today. And today's episode is a little bit of an impromptu. I didn't really have something specifically planned for this episode. For those of you who are new to the channel or who don't follow me on Facebook or Instagram, we are homeschooling our children. So we're traditionally homeschooling. So my days are just consumed by planning, by just implementing it with my kids. So I've been a little bit slow on my YouTube videos, but I thought that today we would do something that I think is pretty relevant because of a show that is on Netflix right now, and that's called Social Dilemma. So if you haven't seen it, I recommend that you watch it. It's about social media apps and the internet and just how it's affecting children, the youth of today, and even us as adults. So I thought that we would have a conversation about it today. So we're not going to talk about the whole docudrama that is Social Dilemma, but I think at the end of it, what the creators are hoping for us to think about is just when and how much we expose our children to the use of gadgets, electronics, internet, and apps such as Google, Snapchat, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, TikTok. There's so many. And I always say we have our own unique ways of parenting, unique ways of being with our families. So we are not here to talk about how not to use gadget or that gadgets are totally bad for our children and they're not supposed to use the internet and whatnot. But I do get asked often in parenting seminars that I do, in caregiver workshops that I hold, they ask, what can we do so that our children sit still at the restaurant, while we're ordering food or while we're eating, that they have a conversation with us, or that when we are in, a long car ride, or if it's traffic, that they don't resort to using the phone so that they still sit still, or using the iPad. Like, what can we do? Now, when you do watch the documentary, you might think that, this problem really is for people who have teenagers, these children who are still forming their self-image, who are easily affected by the number of likes that they get in their posts, those who are constantly worried about the filters that they use so that people will comment that their pictures are cute or that they look gorgeous. But when you think about it, habits are formed at a really young age. And if we want our children to have good self-esteem, to have a good relationship with the internet, to know how to use it appropriately, to know their limits with gadgets, then it's really on us to form that good habit early on. I always say in most of the toddler videos and most of the positive child guidance videos that we have in my channel, that what we do with our children, how we set up the environment, the conversations that we have with them, the kind of relationship that we have, the limits that we set around their lives and our lives, our family life, is what our children will come to understand as appropriate. That's what they'll come to think as normal. So if we start them really early with gadgets, we start them early with using apps, then they tend to think that, then this is something that I can do all the time or most of the time, and it becomes a habit. It becomes addictive somewhat, especially when they are a little bit older. But if we start early and show them, how to properly be in a restaurant, what to do when we have guests over, what to do in long car rides. It may be a little bit of a struggle in the beginning, but eventually once they get that habit, once they know what's expected of them and they know what appropriate behavior is in those kinds of situations, then the easier it is for us, the easier it is for all of us actually. So believe it or not, I only have 2 tips for today. And it's actually stemming from my very first video, which is the 5 ways to positive child guidance. I swear, looking back, I put so much information in that video. It's like I'm probably just an overload mentally, but I'm finding, as I do these positive child guidance videos, these toddler behavior videos, that really it's the foundation of everything. And if you know that those 5 A's and you practice them, then it's really going to be a lot easier. So our first A is applying limits. So before the quote unquote more challenging situations happen, have a conversation with your children. For example, a couple weeks back, we went to Osoyoos, which is about a 4-hour, 5-hour car ride from where we live. So before all that happened, I talked to the girls, to Rafael even, and said that we're going to go on a really long car ride. And they were already asking if they can watch a movie. And I said, for sure, if, we'll check to see if it's, more than a 4-hour car ride, then we can watch a movie. But before you watch a movie, we're going to play some games, sing some songs, and maybe after 2 hours in the car, then you can watch a movie. So when we talk to the kids about it and plan out what is acceptable or what they can do and what they cannot do in a certain situation, then it's easier for our children also to manage their feelings. If we don't talk to them about what we expect of them and they ask, for example, in the car, they say, can we watch a movie? And then you say, no, you can't, or you'd have to wait after an hour, then it's harder for our children to manage the frustration or to manage their feelings about wanting to watch a movie right there and then. But if we talk to them before the car ride, before the situation actually happens, then they're given time to process their emotions, to process their feelings about what's going to occur. And they can also prepare themselves and say that, oh, okay. And they can excite themselves to think that, oh, okay, I can watch a movie, but after 2 hours. So I'm going to sing some songs with mom first. And then after 2 hours, then I can watch a movie. Tip number 2 is another A, and that's anticipation. Now, remember what I said earlier, that in the beginning, it might be a struggle, especially for us parents, but eventually it just gets easier. So this really brings back memories when Matina and Renee were really young, and we'd go to restaurants and I'd be carrying a big bag of things. I would have toys, I would have books, I would have coloring materials, because the restaurants in the Philippines before didn't really have, coloring sheets and crayons to give to kids. So I would bring my own, and I do that because I anticipate the situation of them waiting in the table for their food and them getting restless, them wanting to walk around the restaurant, them wanting to even run around or cry or whine about waiting too long. So I did say it gets better, and it really does. My kids are now 8, 6, and 3. But when we go out to restaurants, it's never a problem. And you might say it does, differ from kid to kid. But I saw that tendency also with Rafael to walk around, to run around. But I really anticipated those kinds of situations and tried different things and brought different things, especially when he was younger. So I know what works for him and what would entice him to sit with us while waiting for our food. So the key with anticipation is really to try different things out and see what works for your child. If your child is a little bit older and can have that conversation with you, have them, even pack a bag for themselves. Like whenever we go out, I ask Rafael to actually prepare his own backpack. I ask him to put in toys, and he'll really stuff it with like little cars, and this worked really well for us when we go on car rides or in restaurants. So I always ask him to pack some toys. He packs a book. So he kind of has ownership about what's going to happen, and again, it's like with applying limits. He knows that these are the things that he can use. He can be doing at a restaurant, but it also just helps him take ownership of what's going to happen and have control over what he's going to do. And when we talk about child development, really at that age, toddlers and 3s and 4s, they're finding that there aren't a lot of things in their life that they are in control of, and that's when power struggles happen. But if you involve them and have them, pick out the things that they can bring, pick out the things that they can use at a restaurant or use at grandma's house or use at a friend's house or use in the car, then at least they feel that they were somewhat part of making that choice. And there's really no need for power struggles because you allow them to make a choice. So quick, that's it. Those are my only 2 tips, but I do have a bonus. I wanted to show you a couple of the things that work for us because they might work for you, and these work really great at restaurants, really great at long car rides. And I say that they work well because there aren't a lot of parts that can get lost. They aren't very small things that, they can just drop on the floor and not see anymore. So my number 1 thing to bring in the restaurant or in the car are books. I really, really love books. And so my kids have always been exposed to them. They always have one. Martina and Renee always have one. When we go to restaurants, when we go in the car ride, or when we go to a friend's house. Again, just anticipating that maybe there might be some times that they would need to wait, so at least they have something that they can use. But if your kids are not readers, or that's not something that they are interested in, then have a pack of coloring materials, paper, such as this. We got this from a birthday party. I think they're really cool, and but you can use any old case. So inside you can put paper. They have their writing materials, so you don't have to keep on asking the server for pieces of paper. I used to do that a lot when we were still in Manila. I would be telling the server, do you have a piece of paper? And they'd give me a tiny piece of paper where they write down our order. But sometimes they don't have extra pencils or extra pens, so it's great to pack one for your child, or it's great if you have your own. In really long car rides, I think Etch-a-Sketch are great things to have, even at restaurants. Again, if you don't have pad paper, you don't have coloring materials, then this is something that works really well with much older kids. This is another version. Well, it's not really an Etch-a-Sketch, but I forget what they're called, but they're magnets, see? And you can basically form a shape by pulling it on with the pins, and they disappear. For Raphael, I'm here for Raphael. This works really great too. He really likes this. Water Wow, and this is great even in car rides and restaurants because it's mess-free. You just fill this up with water, and you can do that even in long car rides because you'd always have a water bottle with you anyways. And in car rides too, but I think even restaurants, but we really only use this in long road trips. And these are the little sticky things. I don't know what they're called. They're called, window clings. So they're not stickers. Well, they kind of are, but they cling to the window, so they can do that, in the car window, and then they can take it off, and it's mess-free. You don't have to worry about, peeling stickers off your car. And this is a really good find. We just recently got this, but we use this in our car ride to Soyuz, and we bring this in the restaurants too sometimes. And it's called a Coggy. So what's great about it is it comes with cards. I love it because it's a brain game too. So it gets your children thinking. So this is for a little bit, for children who are a little bit older, not for FL, but my girls use it. So they have to follow the pictures in the cards by just moving these around. And I like it because there aren't any loose parts. They won't lose anything because it's all in just one, connected all together. So, ooh, and last one is kind of I have this episode where I was painting rocks, and I showed you how we use it to entice toddlers to have a conversation with you, or to get your children who are a little bit older, to get them into creating stories. Well, if you don't want to make your own rock, you can buy story cubes. Ta-da! So story cubes are kind of the idea of the rocks, or they're basically little dice, oh yes, dice looking things, cubes, and they have pictures on them. And the idea is your kids just roll them on the table, and you don't even have to have a piece of paper. It could be an oral story. And what's great is because the entire family can be part of it. You could just create a story by putting the pictures all together. It can be a funny one. It doesn't even have to make sense. And, mom and dad can be part of it too. All right, so that's it. I'm finally done. So those are my 2 tips, and I shared with you things that we actually use in our family that work for us because they might work for you too. So I'm hoping that this video is somewhat helpful to you. Please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. And follow me on Instagram at Monique's Home if you have Instagram. I post a lot of free printables there and activities that we do in our homeschooling. So if you have kids who are in the preschool age, or even in primary grades 1, 2, and 3, maybe there are things there that you can do at home with your kids. So I will see you next time. Again, remember to make every day your own version of extraordinary.